In an age of technology where it's actually encouraged to always be on social media, on calls with clients, on messaging platforms, on Zoom calls, on, it can be quite overwhelming and feel like our phones are taking over our lives. We have developed an unhealthy addiction to our phone and the instant gratification that we get from the message tones and scrolling endlessly through the latest and greatest social media app. In fear of missing out, we run to become part of the mob, spending time creating content we're generally not even proud of to impress people we'll never even know. That got a little dark, and phones aren't all that bad. Phones are tools, and how we use them is purely up to us. They can be used for building successful businesses, which would literally be unthinkable a couple years ago, that you could create and manage a successful business on a device that you can fit inside your pocket. So now that we've established that phones aren't the real problem, how do we stop ourselves from letting them take too much of our time? In this video, I want to share with you some practical tips that I've been using for the past 2 weeks to drastically reduce the amount of time I use senselessly scrolling on my phone in general. Firstly, and this will be different for everyone, you need to take time to audit your phone usage and see where and how you use your time on your phone, and identify what it is that you need to cut down on using. This isn't a particularly difficult exercise, as everyone's phone tracks what apps they use and for how long. You should be able to access this fairly easily by looking at your settings and looking at apps and time usage. You might actually be a little shocked, as I was, at how much time you actually spend on your phone. Seeing the analytics alone might even shock you into realizing just how drastically you need to take stock of how and when you use your phone. I know it did for me. Once you've identified your goals and where you want to reduce your phone usage in general, it is time to create a system in order to achieve that goal. As I said in my previous video on Kaizen, which you can check on the YouTube card at the top there, I think, goals give us an endpoint and direction, where a system gives us the action plan and the steps that we need to take in order to achieve that goal. Your goal may look something like this. Decrease phone usage of insert new fancy social media app by 40% in 1 month. Or unlock your phone 20 times less in the next 2 weeks. You get the point. It needs to be something specific and something you can measure and track so you can see the progress that you're making. Otherwise, if you don't see the progress, you won't be motivated to continue this phone-less life. Now, here are some ideas and tips on how you can use that same piece of technology to your advantage, and thus allowing you to implement your strategy much easier than simply leaving up your new habit that you want to create up to willpower. James Clear writes in his book Atomic Habits, which is a must-read by the way, that disciplined people are better at structuring their life in a way that doesn't rely on heroic willpower or self-control. In other words, they spend less time in tempting situations. This is why we're going to put a system in place to leverage technology to aid us in our new habits. First, open your phone and search in your phone settings for digital well-being or parental controls for Android, or screen time if you're using iPhone. In there, you can set a time limit for how long you want to be able to use a certain app. This will allow you to only use the app that you choose to set a limit on for that amount of time. Pretty straightforward. You should also be able to see in your settings how many times a day you unlock your phone. The average number of phone unlocks per day is 150. This is an estimate and it will be different for everyone. That being said, that is only unlocking your phone. That doesn't count tapping on it, swiping on it, anything like that. You can then in these settings set a goal for how many times you want to unlock your phone. This is a great way to gamify the approach of how to use your phone and technology less. You can try this and see what is the minimum amount of times a day you can unlock your phone. I've personally done this and it feels really great beating your goal of not unlocking your phone for a certain amount of times. And it feels like you're taking back the power and that you're not driven by technology, but that you're in control again. This obviously again doesn't include taps or swipes or anything. I am guilty of looking at my phone a couple of times without unlocking it, and I'm also trying to work on that. If you need to focus on a specific task for a period of time, like work perhaps, you can switch on focus mode or do not disturb, that it limits the amount of notifications to only calls and text messages. In those do not disturb settings, you can also add or take away apps that are allowed to be active in that time frame. If you need to post daily or if you work on social media, I get it, I'm actually a digital marketer. It is literally my job to use these platforms. But we can still be intentional and wise in how we use these platforms in order to not take over our lives. For example, you can batch create a ton of content and schedule it in Facebook or Hootsuite. This may seem like a bad idea to some people, and your mind might start going to worst case scenarios like, what if there's an emergency? And in most cases, things that constitute an emergency in the heat of the moment tend to dissipate or not become an emergency within the next 24 hours without your help. There are always exceptions to this rule. If you have a loved one in hospital, I'd say don't do this exercise until they're out and everything's safe. There's a quote by Seneca the Stoic which goes, "We tend to suffer more in imagination than we do in reality." This quote is very true to the emergencies and excuses we tell ourselves to allow us to keep our phones with us at all times. Some tips for using social media less on your computer or laptop is by setting a timer with your watch or however for the amount of time that you know you're going to need to use those apps. Once the time is finished, log out and close your laptop. Do not use your computer as an scapegoat for replacing your phone usage. The idea is not to transfer device usage, but to limit it. Download and install helpful Chrome extensions like Facebook Newsfeed Killer, which literally eliminates Facebook's newsfeed function. Therefore, you won't even be tempted to scroll. If something is important in your friends and family's lives, you will hear about it from them. There are obviously a plethora of hacks and tips and tricks on apps and things that you can install to limit the amount of time you spend on technology. So to sum it up, decide where you want to start. Set a goal and then create a system and an action plan of how you're going to go about it. Then use technology to leverage your usage thereof and make the process of using technology less fun. Keep refining and bettering your process so that you use less willpower to resist the urge of using your phone. And when you use your phone, that you are intentional about the usage and time you spend on it. Phones again aren't the problem. It's our obsession and fear with missing out that is the problem. As our good friend Gary Vee says, social media isn't the problem, it is the proxy. We then make it our problem by using it incorrectly and getting too emotionally involved in it. These tips will hopefully help you in taking back that power and living a more fulfilled and productive life. If you guys like this video, please consider subscribing. From now on, I'm going to be trying to make one video a week. I make videos focusing on business, self-improvement, and how to live a generally more happy and fulfilled life. Thank you all, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.